Hi, folks. Thanks again for your participation, your interest, and your time today. It's really great to see so many folks interested in the counseling and psychotherapy programs here at the Can Miller Institute, and I'm very pleased to be able to welcome Michael Dimitia, who's our acting course coordinator for these programs. My name's Mung. I'm the academic registrar and head of student services here at the Can Miller Institute. And today you'll really get a valuable opportunity to hear directly from Michael as some of our current faculty, as well as hopefully Stephanie, who's our student representative, who's just running a little bit late, but hopefully will be joining us soon. As I mentioned, a really valuable opportunity to hear a little bit more about these courses, hear a bit more about what makes them unique and what makes it potentially a good fit for you as a prospective student. But more importantly, it's a really important unique opportunity for you to ask questions directly of our faculty. So I know some folks have popped some questions through when they first registered as well as already. So really do take advantage of this opportunity to ask those questions. Before we get started formally, I do also want to provide an acknowledgement of country and recognise that Can Miller is founded on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge their deep enduring connection to land, waters, and community. We acknowledge the richness and value of their accumulated cultural knowledge spanning vast expanses of time and extend this respect to all Indigenous peoples of this continent and any adjacent lands, as well as any First Nations folks who are either here today or who might engage with the material that we'll be discussing. With that, I want to pass it on to Michael. And again, thank you all for your interest and your time today.
Thank you, Ming. So thanks everyone for coming along today. As Ming said, my name is Michael Dimitia. I'm the acting course coordinator for Counselling and Psychotherapy programs. I'll probably spend about the next 25 minutes or so sort of giving you a sort of an overview as to our programs here, why I think our program is unique in terms of counselling and psychotherapy, and then really open up the last sort of 20 minutes or so for any questions you might have. So to just talk a little bit about why Can Miller. In terms of Can Miller as an institute, we really were probably the first place to pioneer psychology and counselling in Australia since 1961. A lot of our courses do have flexible study options, and I think one of the things in particular for our program, and I'll talk about it as a moment, is that you are learning from practitioners. All of us who teach in the program are practitioner academics, so we're actually bringing our experience of working in the field or of working in the field for many years to actually start to inform our teaching. As you can see there, we also have really high quality facilities, and a lot of our student ratings are above the national average. I'll get you to move on, Meg, if that's okay. I'll get into some other slides. So who we are in terms of the CNP program. So this is a picture of all of us at the moment in terms of teachers on the team. As I said sort of at the start, I think what's unique about our program is that everyone, most of the staff who work here at Can Miller and teaching the program actually work part-time. So what that means is outside of their teaching role in the program, they're all engaged in direct client work. And I think that offers us a really unique perspective that you're essentially getting educators who are also practitioners who are bringing the clinical expertise to inform their teaching. So there is a real richness in that. I know a lot of other programs often have academics that just work full-time in academia. I think what makes us unique is that everyone, as I said, everyone aside from Rose, who teaches our research subject, everyone else is basically a practicing therapist, and they're actually bringing that expertise into their teaching. So I think that adds a lot of richness and also adds a lot of sort of everyday wisdom to that as well. If you can move, so thank you. So who are our students? And so just to give you a sense as to the type of students that come to our program now, then again, this is not meant to be an exhaustive list, but often what we find around the types of students that are attracted to this course is that we often get people who are quite mature age, people that are actually changing careers. So it's quite common that we'll often get people who apply to do our programs that may have worked in related fields such as education or nursing, or physiotherapy, for example, or other people that have come from completely opposite fields, such as accounting or finance, etc. So often people will come to us where they're wanting to make a transition at some point in their life and actually are now contemplating about going down a pathway of becoming a counsellor or psychotherapist. Often we'll also get social workers as well who've done sort of more theoretical social work, actually want to start to learn that more practical counselling and psychotherapy orientated skills. And we do also get a lot of psychologists who've done, say, 4 years of psychology that have done a lots of theory in that training that are now wanting to come and learn some of more of those applied skills around how to start to work with clients. And we do often get people who've often got their own lived experience of mental health difficulties or mental health challenges, both on a personal level or sort of in a broader family level as well. Many people also come to us who, I'm sorry, I'm still on that slide, Ming. Many people also come to us where they might be going through some type of significant personal change. So often people come to us where they've had some event in their life or something that has now got them to actually start to question their meaning or purpose as to what it is they want to do with the rest of their working life. So we often hear that quite a lot through the application process and through interviews as well. And many people will actually come here because they've actually thought about doing counselling or psychotherapy, but now sort of feels like the right time as well. All right, and so why study with us? So really what I want to talk about now in terms of for the next sort of 10 minutes or so are some of the things that I think are quite unique to our counselling and psychotherapy program here at Cam Miller. You should move to the, thank you. So the first thing is that our courses are endorsed. Okay, so in Australia here, the Australian Counselling Association, ACA, or PAC for the Psychotherapy and Counselling Federation of Australia are the bodies that govern counselling and psychotherapy training in Australia. So what that means is that our courses go through the rigour and they're accredited to deliver high quality training experiences for our students. So you can be rest assured that our programs here they're rigorous and have been assessed by those professional bodies. We also are a boutique training environment. Okay, so we are a training program at the moment that has a small cohort. So what that means is that we have limited spaces. Entry into our program is via an interview. Okay, so what that means is that you will be required to attend an interview, and we ask a whole range of questions to start to assess your personal suitability. As a result of being a smallish program is that you do get a much more personal touch. Okay, so you're not just a number to us. Yes, you have a student number because that serves a whole range of important practical and administrative purposes. But I think in a program such as ours is that you'll get to know your fellow students really well. You'll get to know your teaching staff really well as well. So we are very much a relational course. The course is also very experiential and practical. Okay, so this is a training program where you're doing skills practice all the time. It's very much a hands-on learning environment. So it's something that really prepares you for being a therapist, I think, to a really high standard. And as I said earlier, we very much have this teacher practitioner models. All of us as lecturers are also practicing therapists as well. So we are, in a sense, bridging that gap between sort of practice and also sort of academia as well. And I think one of the things that's really unique about our program that I'll talk a little bit more later on is that we also arrange your placement for you. Okay, so this is a program where a placement coordinator will actually source your placement for you, and we arrange placement and supervision as well. So that's a really big feature of our program. As I said, I'll talk about supervision a little bit later on. Feel free to change slides for me, Ming, please. I'm not sure if Steph has joined us, our student rep, and if so, Steph, if you wanted to introduce yourself or comment anything about your experiences as being a student.
Unfortunately, Michael, I think Steph might be held up, so I will give you a heads up if she does manage to join us later. But for now, we might just pass on her apologies.
Lovely, Norris. Thank you. Just thought I'd check. Thank you. So a couple of things about our program is philosophically aligned. Okay, so what that means essentially is that a lot of thought has gone into thinking about how this program is constructed and how to offer you as a student the best possible educational experience. So the program is humanistic. Okay, so that's the broad overarching sort of framework that we take. It's also integrated as well. So aside from drawing from a lot of humanistic sort of theories and approaches, we also draw upon other sort of therapeutic approaches such as psychodynamic and family systems theory. But that's integrated into our teaching in a very humanistic lens. Our course is also very process orientated. So what I mean by being process orientated is that a lot of our teaching and our learning is very much informed about what's coming up in the moment for you. So we're working with what's emerging in the teaching context, what's happening within the group and what's happening within the class. And so there is an element of that of being somewhat unstructured at times, but we also feel from a teaching point of view that also mirrors what happens a lot in working as a therapist, that a lot of therapy is actually working in the processes of what's unfolding between you and the client. And we're also systemically informed as well. So essentially, we pay attention to the various context and culture and sort of broader context that we live in that starts to inform how we need to work as therapists as well. All right, so these next few slides, I want to talk a little bit about what I think is unique about this program and what it is I think that actually will start to prepare you to be a really good therapist. So the program is very contemplative. Okay, so what that means is that you'll spend a lot of time in the program learning about yourself. And many students who come through our program, who are often at the later stages of their grad diploma and masters, talk a lot about how much they've had personal transformation or learning about themselves. The course is steered towards very much about, starting to learn about yourself, because we feel that by learning about yourself as an individual and a professional will actually improve the type of therapist that you'll be. So there's a big focus of that in the learning. Should move to the next slide for me as well, Ming, if possible. There's also a huge relational emphasis as well. So this program is very relational. Okay, so you are, as I said before, the classes aren't huge classes, so you'll get to know your colleagues really well. There's lots of skills practice with each other, so you are essentially learning from each other all the time. And why is this important? Which I think is the next point in the slide, Ming, if you could click to, please.
Just before I move on, I did want to acknowledge that I believe Steph has joined us. So I'll be adding her to the panel shortly. And as I mentioned at the beginning as well, just really encourage all of our attendees today to take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions of both Michael and Steph. And before I move, Steph, I might just let you quickly introduce yourselves. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, I've been here the whole time, actually. I just haven't been able to get in, so I've heard everything.
Oh, lovely.
But hello, glad I made it work. Yeah, so my name is Steph, and I'm one of the master's students for the Counselling and Psychotherapy course. I'm a few weeks off graduating, so almost finished.
Great, thank you, Steph.
Back to you, Michael.
Thank you. I've lost my train of thought with that, so we'll get back to it right now. So as I said, the course, sorry, if you go back to the previous slide, Meg, I was going to talk about that point that just came up. Yeah, so the program is very much a relational emphasis, and a lot of thinking goes behind that, because I think from a psychological point of view, a lot of our wounds are formed in relationships. It's often the place where where we lose trust in others. Yet the flip side of that is that through a relational emphasis is where we can start to learn to trust others again, and trust in ourselves is also restored. So I think I know lots of students talk a lot about the importance of the relational emphasis in the program, and that we do. I think certainly what I've observed is that groups do form a tight bond, and you do learn a lot from each other as well. Steph, is there anything that you want to add about the relational nature of the course? You're almost at the end of the master, so you would have had quite a few years of this relational emphasis. Anything that stands out for yourself?
Yeah, just literally that it's been, I think what you said, Michael, like a really tight bond that's formed between myself and my peers and the teachers. The relational emphasis, I can't imagine, I've never had a learning environment that's like this. And I guess because it is, what we're learning is so relational, we are learning so much through the relationship, if that makes sense. So the process that we all go through each week, yeah, it's a really big part of it. So yeah, I've got a family for life now, really.
Great, thanks, Steph. And if you can move through to the next slide, thank you. The course also has a huge focus on the reflection. So here, what we're really thinking about is that through our teaching and the course structure, we really encourage you to, reflect on what's actually happening for you. How do I start to grow from the experiences? How can I start to reflect as to what's emerging for me right now, in terms of really about my thoughts, my feelings? And that ties into a lot of this process orientation, that we are directed, or we are really helping direct you as students to be aware of what's coming up for you. How do I start to understand that? How does that start to improve who I am as an individual, but also start to improve how I might start to work as a therapist as well? And the next point is the course is also highly reflexive as well. So when we're talking about reflexivity in this context, we're moving to another level of depth where we're thinking not only around what's actually I'm noticing right now, but to also be thinking about what are some of the assumptions around that? You know, what are some of the assumptions I hold as an individual about how I see myself, how I see others, how I see the world around me? So I would argue with this focus here is that it actually helps you come out to be, I think, a much better therapist because you've got these skills to be able to actually be self-aware, to be able to reflect on those experiences, as well as also start to challenge some of the assumptions behind that. Next slide, please. All right. So this slide here shows you the course structure for our programs. So the program has what we call nested structure. So essentially the graduate certificate is what you can see in that light sort of grey, is the first 4 units of the masters. The graduate diploma is the first 8 units of the masters. And then the master's program is those last 8 units. So essentially what that means is that as a student, you have 3 potential exit points. So some students apply to want to go straight through to the masters. Others might just want to apply for the grad dip. And some people apply often just for the grad cert for those first 4 units, just to get a feel as to whether this might be the right thing for them. Regardless of what your exit point is that if you all start the course in 2026, regardless of whether you're involved with the grad cert or the grad dip or the masters, is that you're all in the same classes because it's a nested structure. And so, as I said, the first 4 units, the grad cert is the first 4 units of the masters, and the grad dip is the first 8 units of the masters as well. So what that means is that you will often have the same cohort that'll be there at various points. The next slide talks about that in more detail yet. So the graduate certificate of counselling and psychotherapy can only be done part-time. In terms of how that's structured around sequencing and also units, it can only be done 1 year part-time. And that course is not accredited with ACA and PACFA purely because there's no placement component to that. Okay, so that is a course where you don't actually do a placement. So the graduate diploma in counselling and psychotherapy can either be done full-time or part-time. Obviously, it's 1 year full-time and equivalent part-time, and you have 1 placement as part of that, as part of the graduate diploma. That will lead you to successful completion to membership with ACA. Now, in case you're wondering why is that membership with ACA and not PACFA, PACFA at the moment only accredits master's programs, okay? So they only accredit programs at the master's level. So if you are wanting membership with PACFA, that will require you to do the masters. Okay, so the masters is 2 years of full-time study and it also involves 2 placements. Okay, so the first placement will be part of your graduate diploma, and then the second placement will be part of your masters. As I said, it's a nested program. So the graduate diploma is the first year of the masters. I hope that makes sense. I can't see anyone on the screen. Usually this would be the point where I'd pause if I was teaching and say, any questions, please ask. So we'll have an opportunity once I get through these slides to ask any of those questions. But if anyone had any questions about that now, Meng, I'm happy to actually pause rather than feeling like I've got to just continue talking.
Yeah, no problems. Thanks, Michael. And I think you've been doing a great job. I've been trying to facilitate some of the questions in the background just to make sure that you've got some focus time. But there is a question actually related to this, and so before we move on, someone has asked, are you aware how transferable are some of the qualifications from this course outside of Australia? So obviously, while we do have that accreditation with PACFA and ACA, do you have any examples of students who you know went on to practice outside of Australia and what their kind of either competencies or capacity to do that would be?
Yeah, it's really tricky because every country has their own regulations around that. Often the thing that students can find the most challenging. I know we had a student a couple of years ago that they wanted to register, I think, with the equivalent in the UK. Now, lots of training programs in the UK actually say that as part of your training, you need to have X amount of hours of personal therapy. Now, at the moment, we don't mandate personal therapy, and it's not something which is actually mandated in the training standards of ACA and PACFA. So that's often the things that students find as roadblocks when they go to apply sort of in the UK or US, is that a lot of those sort of areas will actually say that, yes, we recognise the training, yet often people who do our course need to have X amount of hours of personal therapy. And we often tell students in our program that we highly recommend that you have your own therapy anyway, because the program will stir things up for you, but it's not mandated. So that's often the stuff that I hear. So I think if you are interested to actually go overseas, or you might be an international student and you're going to be returning home, it's probably good to just have a look whether they have any regulations around that, because there's no reason why you can't do this in conjunction with your training. That'll then put you in a much better position for when you want to apply for equivalence.
Great, thank you. And then I know with kind of accreditation and registration,
Yep.
it can get really confusing with all the different bodies, but someone has just asked for clarification of what exactly is the difference between ACA and PACFA?
Are there two different professional organisations which have slightly different standards? And so what I mean by that is PACFA, for example, has just put out this week a list of criteria to become registered as a psychotherapist. Okay, so that literally was launched on Monday night. I have to be honest, I haven't had a chance to read through that yet. So, in terms of eligibility for membership with them both, they're both sort of peak bodies, yet they have slightly different standards in terms of what they would actually accredit. So, as I said before, a PACFA only accredits master's programs. So that doesn't say anything about the quality of our graduate diploma. It's just more the fact that for them, a membership with PACFA requires completion of a master's. So I think if I was a student coming through, I would probably register with them both if you're eligible for them both, because they both offer lots of information and lots of resources for people that are starting out in the field. But I would argue that one's not better than the other. They're both equally important. Lovely. All right, so some of you hopefully hearing me talk and thinking, oh, I really want to do this course. And we've already started interviews about 3 weeks ago, so we're already sort of in the process of thinking about selecting our group, our cohort for 2026. So the application process is direct through Camilla. We have 2 different WAM cutoffs. So if you're applying for the Masters, you need to have a WAM minimum of 70%. And if you're applying for the grad cert or the grad dip, that needs to be 60%. We usually want you to have a bachelor in a related field. You can also apply at the grad dip level if you're coming from a field that's non-sort of related to counselling and psychotherapy. Some of the things that you'll need to upload as part of the application process is your academic transcript, so we can get a sense of what your WAM is. Also good for you to upload a CV as well, so we can get a sense of your history in terms of what you've done prior to this course. Also need to upload proof of identity and citizenship status as well. And what you'll also find in the portal that's specific to counselling psychotherapy is that we have 5 questions there that we want you to respond to. So those 5 questions are really just ways for you to start to reflect on what's led you to this point here to want to apply for the course, and also gives the interview panel a chance to have a bit of information about you. So assuming that all that information has been uploaded and you meet the criteria, Student Services will send you an invitation to book online to an interview. An interview runs for about 25 minutes, and that occurs with 2 staff members. Next slide, please. Thanks, Moon. All right, so interviews can be challenging. So I've titled this slide "Getting Past the Bounce." This is thinking about my old nightclub days many years ago. So this kind of been really hard about, what's required to get past an interview. So really what I'm sort of want to give you an idea here is about the types of things that the interview panel actually looks for around assessing your ability to complete the program. So probably the thing that's the main thing that we're looking for is your emotional and psychological readiness. So if you go back to some of the things I said in those previous slides around how the course is orientated around really wanting you to get to learn more about yourself, to really encourage that, that reflection about what's happening for you, and to also encourage that deeper reflexivity about what might be driving your behavior. We're really looking for, applicants who are able to actually do that in an educational context. We're also interested in some type of clarity about why you might want to do this. And also looking for a good philosophical fit. So if you want to come into a training program where we give you all the answers and it's very solution orientated, or it doesn't come from that humanistic framework, it's probably not going to be a great philosophical fit for you. So we're wanting, students who would feel at home with the type of program that we offer here. I think what's also really important is that there needs to be some openness to experience to tolerate uncertainty. So if, as I said before, a lot of our training is very much process orientated. So what that means by process orientated is that at times that can look unstructured. So if you're someone that really wants structure and certainty, a lot of our training, particularly at the master's level, might be hard work for you. So we're looking for some evidence that you can sit with some uncertainty. and that there's a tolerance for that, or an ability to actually grow and learn from that. We're also very much interested in curiosity about what you don't know yet about yourself. So as I said, through this training program, people often talk a lot about how much they've learned about themselves as an individual. So we're looking for evidence that you are open to actually learning about those parts about yourself that are not yet known. And obviously, I'm really interested around your ability to handle that as well, because when we're learning things about ourselves, it can actually be quite distressing at times, or might be quite surprising, or all of the above. So the ability to be able to hold that and still work with that. And just with those last 2 points there, we do value lived experience, and we also do value diversity as well. So we're not trying to choose a cohort that everyone is the same, of the same age or the same gender or the same sexual orientation, etc. We're really interested about selecting a group that actually mirrors, our broader society. So that's, these are all our calculations about the type of things that we're looking for, but also be aware that it is a small cohort. So it might be that you actually meet a lot of this criteria, but we have people that we think are much more ready at this stage to actually undertake the training. Next slide. Okay. So how does the course actually look? So if you were offered a place and you were to undertake the program at a part-time course structure, in terms of semester 1, you'd be doing 2 units on one day. So it's 6 hours of learning. It's often CAP 401, theories and models in the morning, and person-centered counselling 1 to 4 in the afternoon. And so these are taught on the same day. So it's usually 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. So each unit has 12 weeks of 3 hours per week in person. Now this slide isn't as clear as I would like to say. It's 9 to 12 hours associated study time per week, not per semester. Okay, so I want to keep that in mind, is that the expectation is with a course like this is that you're attending for those 6 hours of the day, but also the fact that there is lots of reading to do, there's assignments, and for a lot of our units that are more experiential, there's lots of skills practice as well. Okay, so often how I think about a part-time course structure is that it might just be 1 day on campus. You probably want to allocate about a day or a day and a half of outside time to do all the readings, assignment work, and also skills practice as well. I might throw over you, Steph, as to how you found that balance around. I think you've been part-time throughout the course. And can you comment a little bit about how you found how much time has been needed outside of actual formal class time?
Yeah. So happy to speak to this because I didn't really know before studying, I'd obviously done an undergrad before, so I had an idea of, like readings, time for study, but I can't emphasize enough how much time this course will take out of those days there. Like even doing the course part-time, I'm only on campus 1 day a week. But I'm every single other day, I'm doing coursework, like practicing for the experiential units, like Michael said, or reading, or just processing like the emotional things that are coming up. It's a full-time, even part-time study feels like a full-time load, if I'm being honest. And I actually did study. My first year was full-time, Michael, and I think I started with a part-time job as well at the same time. Like I was doing the full-time load and I was working 3 days a week in a part-time job. Quickly that dropped down to 2 days, 1 day, and then no days at all. I don't, yeah, full-time, if anyone is considering full-time study, I'll be here to answer personal questions if you like. But yeah, it would take a very organized, very structured week to be able to do the full-time study load, and there's not a lot of people who can really maintain that. I certainly couldn't, and so part-time is the way to go.
Lovely, thanks, Steph.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if you're studying part-time in semester 2, you'd also be doing 2 units again, both on the same day. And again, so those 4 units are form the grad cert. Okay, so that would be the grad cert. If you were doing the grad dip, that will then part-time. That will then look in semester 1 next year. Would look by doing ethics and assessment again on the same day. and again the same amount of hours, and then a semester 2 that would look to doing just the 1 unit, and then that's when placement kicks in as well. Okay, so I'll talk more about placement in a moment, but how placement would look, it's 2 days per week we ask that you commit to, and that requires 40 hours of client contact, as well as that also involves having supervision, both individual fortnightly and then alternating on the other week group supervision as well. So that's how a part-time course structure would look like if you were doing the grad cert and then continue on to the grad dip. I think the next slide has got the full-time course structure. All right, so how would full-time look like? So again, you'd be doing theories and models and person-centered and ethics in assessment in semester 1. That will be 2 days. So again, theories and person-centered across 1 day, ethics and assessment on the other day. So it'd be 2 days, 2 full days on campus, and then all of the outside study time as well. And then for semester 2, assuming that you're doing the grad dip, as I said earlier, the grad cert can only be done part-time for our sequence at the moment, but assuming you are enrolled full-time in the grad dip, you would then be doing semester 2, cognitive therapies and facilitating therapeutic change in semester 2, 1 day, and then you'd be coming in for the treatment planning unit, and then also be doing placement as well. And if you were then going to continue on for the master's level, so these units that are semester 1, 2027, semester 2, we're now looking at units that comprise our masters. You'd be doing child and family and research on 1 day, and then doing interpersonal process on another day, and then also undertaking placement as well. And then if you're full-time in semester 2, you'd be doing 4 units again, the first 2 on 1 day, and then the second 2 on the other day. So that's essentially how a full-time course structure would go. So just coming back to what Steph was saying before, most people who enroll in this course study part-time. You can certainly choose to study full-time or part-time. It's obviously your preference, but people often find, because of the nature of, the training program like this, because it is one that really gets you to reflect on your experiences and is focused a lot on your personal development as well. It does bring up lots of stuff, stuff that often, it takes you time to actually work through as well. So to talk a little bit about placement. So as I said, there's 1 placement in the graduate diploma, and then if you go on to do the master's, there's another placement in the master's as well. So both of our placements are really designed to meet the requirements of ACA and PACFA. Next slide, please, Ming. Thank you. So what are the aims of placement? So this is really your opportunity to actually start to move from theory or opportunities of where you've done skills practice with your colleagues to actually start to work with real life clients. Okay, so it's this opportunity for you to start to apply learning. It's really important stuff. It's often the place where you start to form your professional identity about being a counsellor and psychotherapist, where you start to learn about how to be a professional in the field, and to also start to actually, start to have the experience of being a placement of actually working in a team, working with other counsellors and psychotherapists. And it's also a really important place where you start to form those connections and relationships with other professionals as well. Next slide, please, Ming. So, as you can see, that point down the bottom, which I'll go to first in red, is that what's quite unique about CMI is that we organise the placements for you. Okay, so the placement coordinator sources placements for our students, and you are not expected to find your own placement. So if you are enrolled in the placement unit, usually Paulina, who's our placement coordinator, will meet with you early on in the semester, get a sense of where your interests are, other types of places that you might be keen to be placed in, and then really try to work with you to find a placement agency that fits where you're at in terms of your needs. And so some of the opportunities at the moment where people are placed are places like the CMI clinic. So here at Camilla, we have our own internal clinics at all our sites. Our students will often go off into various community agencies and clinics as well. We have relationships with a whole range of community health and service organisations. Our students are often placed both in primary and secondary students as well. And many of our students will often go off and working in counselling services as part of universities and TAFEs as well. We have existing relationships with a range of rehab providers, aged care facilities as well as also EAP. And we do also have some opportunities in rural settings which come with paid overnight accommodation as well. So we do try to help you find a placement, a setting that suits your interests, but keep in mind that there are a limited number of placements, and you won't always get the place that is your first preference. You know, what's most important in placement is about getting the experience to actually start to help form your identity as a therapist. Next slide for me, please, Ming. So what might you do after graduation? Okay, so where do some of our graduates work? Now, again, this is not meant to be an exhausting list, but as you can see, many of these career opportunities are places where people where organisations where students have had their placements. And can I say, it's quite common for many students who will actually be offered jobs at places where they've done their placements. So I'd always think about placement as being an opportunity for you to present yourself really well, because people are getting a sense of you for 2 days a week across half a year. And these are often places where students will actually land jobs because they know you, they know how you work. So these are just some of the places where a lot of our graduates end up working post graduation. I think that might be the last of the slides for me. Yes, and I think Meng is going to talk about these last few slides before we open up to broader questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael. And so you've heard a lot now about specifically the counselling and psychotherapy courses here at Camilla, but something that we also wanted to acknowledge is some of the support services and resources that are available for all of our students. And again, we really try and drive that student experience based on this principle of making sure that we support student well-being, and also acknowledge that everyone will have very individualized and unique journeys throughout their academics. And so for example, we may have some folks here today who are international students or otherwise non-domestic, and we recognize that that can be a very separate experience, both in terms of transition and orientation, as well as some of the challenges that you might experience. So we run a number of tailored social activities, workshops, as well as other study advice and resources to cater to that cohort. And also have a wide range of academic supports. So that includes one-on-one learning consultations, ongoing and kind of frequent academic skill sessions or webinars across the year, as well as other study strategies and tips, just to make sure that students really are equipped for success. And then lastly, again, acknowledging that we may have some prospective students who have either ongoing or temporary accessibility needs that impact their ability to study successfully, or you might just have something come up in your life. As we know, things can happen. So we try and make sure that there's a range of flexible study modifications and adjustments to make sure that those barriers don't actually impact your ability to study successfully. The next question students often have is obviously around tuition fees and funding. And we do acknowledge that as a small not-for-profit provider, we don't unfortunately have CSP places, but we do our best to keep those fees as kind of reasonable and accessible as possible. And so you'll see there an annual full-time fee as of next year. And there are a number of ways that you can pay for it. So there have been a few questions throughout the chat already about fee help. So that is available to eligible domestic students. And there are sometimes external study loans or scholarships that students can access through other organizations or providers. And then lastly, of course, you can choose to pay for your fees upfront and directly. And if you do need kind of payment plans or other flexible modifications, that's also something that we can arrange for students in consultation with our accounts team as well. There's been a lot of information so far, but some of the key takeaways is just reminding you all that applications are already open and we've been making ongoing offers since August. So definitely encouraging folks to get in early or to contact our applications team if you do have any questions that are holding you back from submitting that application. And as mentioned, fee help is available for eligible domestic students. So something to consider if you are in that category. A lot of questions have come through the chat so far. So I'm really glad to see that. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a really valuable opportunity for you to hear directly from current students and faculty. So we'll run through some of the questions that have come through so far. And Steph, I might pose this first one to you. There's been a lot of questions from folks around how to manage study commitments with work, life, etc. In particular, a few questions around, are there examples of students who manage their study load while still working, either part-time or with other commitments such as parenting? So curious from your perspective, either from yourself or from some of the peers that you know, what's been your experience and what would be your recommendations to students who are, or prospective applicants, sorry, who are thinking about how they can fit this into the rest of their lives?
Yeah, oh my gosh, such a good question. Yeah, as I said, it's something I didn't think much about, and then had to learn the hard way that it is very hard to manage, yeah, your life with this course. Um, I'll speak for some of my peers who I know have kids and have families. Most seem to manage to do that well. I don't have kids, so I'm not quite, I know it's really difficult and really challenging. Um, but most are able to make it work. Um, most who I know who do have kids or have a family or have, any sort of family commitments, as I said before, I think they really the key to this life balance is to choose the part-time study option. Um, I think I do know one person who I studied with in the first year who was full-time and who had a baby under one. I'm not quite sure how they manage that. Um, it takes I think they, with a lot of support from their family, obviously. Um, but yeah, so I can't recommend part-time study enough. If this is a little, even a small apprehension that you might have now, I would say go with that gut instinct. And yeah, part-time is great. It gives you more time to really slowly work with this, like as Michael was saying, that really reflexive sort of practice and everything that comes up. Um, Going slow with this is actually really beneficial. So yeah, and then that brings me to work as well. Yeah, as I said, I did have a part-time job and then I had to can that like straight away. I couldn't manage the full-time study load. Plus, once I got into placement, yeah, that was a lot. Uh, Part-time study, I have found that I have been able to work a little bit more. Not when I'm on placement though. Sort of when there's placements involved, that just becomes like your, full-time job. I know you're only going to placement maybe 1 or 2 days a week, but there's so much that comes on the other side of um, placements. Like there's a lot of supervision requirements, group supervision and individual supervision, plus just, getting used to seeing clients if you haven't worked with clients before in a counseling capacity, like it can be a lot. So you just need a lot of that downtime and a lot of processing time. Not to mention, yeah, there's usually a subject on the side as well. So you're still doing assignments at the same time, case notes and all of those things. Um, yeah, but it's manageable. It's doable, but I would recommend not not working too much on the side of this course.
Thanks, Steph. It's always helpful to hear kind of an honest and candid opinion. So I'm sure folks are really appreciative of that. Michael, I might pose the next question to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone's been asking about what therapy modalities are taught and what opportunities do students have to either make preferences or choose to focus on certain areas.
Yeah. Yeah, so to answer the second part of the question, there's no electives in this program at this stage. Yeah, so the subjects, if you looked at that sort of course map that we had up earlier, more broadly, you're introduced to humanistic therapies more broadly. So there's units on person-centered therapy. There's units on facilitating therapeutic change that comes from process sort of focusing orientation. There's also a unit on acceptance and commitment therapy. At the master's level, there's also focusing on emotion-focused therapy as well that fits within that humanistic framework. But as I said before, it's also sort of integrative as well. That we have a unit that'll teach you a systemic therapy, as well as also a unit on existential as well. So it falls broadly under that humanistic sort of framework, but we do sort of integrate other sort of approaches into that as well.
Thank you. And a bit of a curly question that's come through. Someone's mentioned that they've been told that the term therapist isn't regulated formally in Australia. Not sure if you've seen that come through the chat, but yeah, curious if you have any insider advice.
Yeah, so at the moment, anyone in Australia can call themselves a counsellor or a psychotherapist. They're unregulated terms. Okay, so anybody could you know, you could leave this webinar right now and say, I've attended a Ken Miller webinar on the program. I think I know something when I call myself a counsellor. It's actually more about you actually having the qualifications there to say, you know, from an ethical perspective, I can call myself a therapist now because I've done, you know, X amount of training here. So at the moment, that's a broader issue that actually falls here, because counselling and psychotherapy are unregulated the professions. You know, they're essentially self-regulated. So the best way of having that self-regulation is to become a member of either ACA or PACFA, because they have various levels within those organisations. Obviously, if you do a training course such as this, for example, if you did the grad dip, you'd be able to, you know, become a member of ACA, and all that stuff will then add credibility to you, because you would be someone who's using the title, you would have the qualifications and the membership behind you to support that. And likewise, if you completed the masters, you can join other various colleges that PACFA has as well. So that's the type of way at the moment, I guess, if I was someone who was looking for a therapist, as to how you might actually sense, you know, someone who's got the credibility, because I have that through membership of those professional organisations. I hope that's answered the curly one.
Yeah, thank you. That's always a bit tricky. There's been another question around Medicare rebates for clients. Michael, any thoughts on that?
Look, all I can say is that I know that both ACA and PACFA have been lobbying the federal government about that for years, but I'm not aware of any sort of movement about that at the moment. I think, if anything, the government seems to want to be able to restrict Medicare access rather than expand it. So I know there's ongoing lobbying from both those peak organisations. You know, I haven't heard anything about timeframes or the when that's likely to occur.
Thanks. So we're coming to the end. Wanted to remind folks that if you do have any final questions, now's your chance to get in. But in the meantime, Steph, I might pose one. Actually, it'll be posed to both of you, I suppose, but in a slightly different way. Steph, for you, I'm curious, if you were to think back to when you were first applying, what is something you wish you'd known? And it could be about the application process itself. It could be about preparing to study, or actually commencing your studies themselves. What's something you just wish you'd known that you'd want to pass on to prospective applicants? And Michael, for you, I suppose in a similar vein, what's something that you just wish all new counselling and psychotherapy students knew?
Oh, jeez. That's a very tough question. What we say to people will be, and this might seem like a very odd answer, but I'll say it anyway, is that if you are invited to an interview, you know, what we're looking for mostly in the interview is to actually just be yourself, really, in that. You know, often people come to interviews and they've got either reading off scripts, or they've got pre-planned answers. I think for a course like this, hopefully, in terms of what I've highlighted through the presentation, is they're really interested to get a sense of who you are. And I think that actually presents itself as being as a natural as you can be in the moment. So that's what I would say to people, that if you're contemplating applying for this course and you're offered an interview, to actually not spend lots and lots of times actually, you know, preparing the responses that you think, you know, that we want to hear as a team, but to actually just present yourself as to who you are in that moment. You know, that's the stuff that I think would actually really help you to get into the program.
Steph, thoughts?
I'm so glad you went first, Michael, because I was like, I don't know how to answer this.
I thought I'd save you and go first.
Thank you. But yeah, coming off the back of what you said, I think that's wonderful advice. Yeah, just be yourself. Yeah, something about, throw, I don't know what this expression even means, but like, throw caution to the wind. Like, just do it, because it's going to be like, I think what I'm speaking to my past self here, it's going to change you. So just be yourself, yes, but also be ready to be totally, like, to have that changed. Like, what you know, what you know isn't what you know.
And
and a lot's going to open up.
I'm going to step here and probably embarrass Steph by saying this, but I actually taught Steph when she first started the program, and I've taught her right towards the end. And I think Steph's a great example of personal transformation and change, in terms of watching get through this program. Certainly, in terms of what I've observed with Steph is that she seems like a very different person in a positive way. That is all positive changes, of course, as a result of going through the program. And I think it really highlights to me as to what you can get out of this, both personally and professionally, by doing a training program such as this.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. No, that's really, it's lovely to hear. It has been a change for the better. I don't know if maybe I sounded a bit scary there for a moment. It's a good change. It's really beautiful things come out of it. And yeah, just embrace the uncertainty, embrace the unknown. Lots of great things come about. And yeah, and I'm working now as a counselor and psychotherapist and doing it. And it's really good. Been the best decision I ever made.
Amazing. Thanks, Steph. On a similar vein, someone's asked, what would be your recommendations for either accounting skills, study skills, or other strategies that they can engage in to prepare them for the course, particularly because it is quite unique and has its own individual nuances?
I mean, we have shorter courses that are offered here at Kenmel as well. So I think we have, various counselling courses that are run through our. I can't recall if it's called our short course program, Ming. I'm not sure the exact name, but yeah, we have other smaller courses that are not sort of formal units. That might be a way to sort of have an introduction to that. I mean, if you have sort of an interest but are not quite sure, many people that are unsure whether they want to go down this pathway will often just apply for the grad cert. The grad cert can be sort of a softer landing in this program because it's no placement to it. It's only 4 units. So I think if you're wanting to get a bit of a taste of the program but not quite sure yet whether this is actually the pathway that I want to go down wise, the pathway for career to get accreditation with ACA and PACFA, then often the grad cert will give you a taste as to what our philosophy is and still give you skills in those 4 units as well.
Another question about AI, which is a hot topic nowadays. What are your thoughts around how AI is either impacting the fields or impacting students' abilities to study? And maybe Michael, I might give that one to you.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think AI is here, whether we like it, AI is here, but I don't believe at this stage that AI is going to replace a human therapist. Therapy is still fundamentally the relational experience. So I hold faith that people want, in times of distress, that people need other people, not an AI chatbot. So perhaps that's Pollyanna-ish thinking, but I'm going to hold on to that because that helps me, to stay focused in my career. In terms of AI, sort of in an academic context, that obviously is a challenge for lots of higher education providers. Where I think we're slightly different is that a lot of our assessments in this course are actually a skills practice, things where you record a session with your peers. So stuff like that can't be constructed through AI. So I think we're somewhat buffered by that. But yeah, I think in terms of actually AI replacing therapists, no, I'm still hopeful that that's not going to happen. And I hope that doesn't happen for a range of reasons.
I'm sure you are not alone in that, though.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, we're coming to the end of today's session. You do have another minute or so to get through any final burning questions, but in the meantime, I do just want to thank all of our participants today for your interest, and we genuinely do hope to welcome you as part of the Cairnmillar community soon. So as we mentioned earlier, applications are open, and we encourage you to get in early just to maximize your chances. One of the other things to be aware of is that we do offer one-on-one individual application consultations with members of our admissions team. So if you feel like you would benefit from having a more personalized conversation about your individual background, experience, and interests, then definitely make sure to book one of those via our website. And you can also find tons of information on all of the individual course pages as well. We'll be making sure to share a recording of today's conversation with folks who have attended. And if you do have any questions, never hesitate to reach out again, either to our applications team or to Michael himself. And so if there aren't any other questions, we might start to wrap up. Again, thank you all for coming today. Hope you have a lovely evening. And as mentioned, hopefully we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks, everyone.